Good morning. It's Lisa with Lisa Heal Yourself. And today we are going to talk about the fourth C of healing, which is compassion. So let's look at self-compassion. What is compassion? Compassion is when you feel a shared connection with someone, usually over their pain. You feel that way. It's an empathy of sorts. And because of that shared connection that you feel to their pain, that empathy and sympathy that you can feel for them, you extend this person kindness, love, and connection. So this is the basis of what compassion is. And usually we can bond with people over shared experiences, pain, and when we can feel that, when we can sense that because we've been through something similar or we have an empathy for them, we pull them closer to ourselves. We don't separate from them. We connect, we bond with them. So this is usually bonding, and friendships are born out of shared pain or shared suffering or a shared commonality of, yes, I understand you and I'm going to connect with you over that and reach out and show you compassion, a bond, love, kindness. So this compassion is great that we can share with others, and it's how we connect to people in the world and to our tribe. But a lot of times we cannot show ourselves compassion, which is what needs to happen, because compassion is self-love, it's self-connection, it's a bonding, it's a trust, it's a friendship, it's pure kindness, right? Unconditional love. This is what self-compassion looks like. That's what it is. To be self-compassion is to extend kindness, understanding, trust, friendship, connection, love to yourself. And those who are suffering with chronic illness often feel very alone, often feel very isolated. We often self-isolate. We often feel disconnected from others. We feel like people disconnect from us and we disconnect from them. We feel an extreme disconnect from the people that we love most. Often we feel lonely and abandoned and misunderstood. We feel like no one understands us, nobody cares, nobody loves us. We feel lonely, isolated. We end up starting to feel shame, deep shame about ourselves. Our self-esteem plummets. We don't feel good enough. We don't feel worthy. So often we think that everybody disconnects from us and that no one's showing us compassion. And sometimes with chronic illness, because of the length of time that suffering goes on, people do disconnect because they can only show compassion. Often when you show compassion for somebody, it's that shared bond and the helping and the pulling the person out of it and the showing the kindness, and that other person responds to your kindness and your love, and that helps, and then you feel great about yourself. But if you're not getting better, if you're not pulling out of it, people often disconnect because it's scary. It's too hard for them. It's too scary for them to stay. So often, in order to preserve their own self-esteem and their own connection and their own worthiness, they disconnect and find somebody else who it's easier to relate to and show compassion to. And often we disconnect. Often we're the ones that feel abandoned, yet we are the ones who are disconnected because we disconnect from ourselves. When we stop showing compassion to ourselves and when we disconnect from our own intuition, when we start to fragment and lose pieces of ourselves, people can't connect with us because we're no longer whole. We're no longer complete. When we dissociate and disconnect from ourselves, it's almost impossible for others to relate and connect, therefore show true compassion and love, because the sense of self is fragmented. The sense of self isn't there and whole, and people feel like you're not relating self to self, one-on-one, friend to friend, person to person. Parts of yourself are fragmented and lost and buried and disowned and disassociated. And so it's very hard for people to connect and relate to you. And so it's hard for us because we need connection, we need love, we need trust, we need bonding, friendship, kindness, unconditional love. This is what we need. We need compassion from others. But really what we need is we need it from ourselves. Because in chronic illness, often we begin to hate part of ourselves. We begin to hate the pain. We begin to hate the suffering. The part that does this, the part that does that, the part that's tired, the part that's in pain, the part that's weak, the part that's needy, the part that's all these different parts, and we push them away. We push it away, we deny it, we disown it, we hate it, we show it hate and anger and contempt. We disconnect from it and we dissociate from parts of ourselves. And that's the farthest thing from compassion that there is. And this is why, it's so important to show compassion to yourself, self-compassion, in order to heal. Because as we begin to show ourselves compassion and kindness and connection and bonding and friendship and unconditional love, we begin to call those parts of ourselves that we've disowned and abandoned and that we hate, we call them back to ourselves as if they were a friend, as if they were a child, as if they were somebody that we are trying to relate to, right? That we understand. We're extending understanding. We're extending love. We're extending connection. We're extending kindness. We're extending safety. When we're compassionate to these parts of ourselves that we've abandoned, essentially cut off and dissociated from, and that we really don't like, we don't want, and we hate. And it's not until we can show these parts kindness and love and trust and connection and friendship, and we can bond with them, we can build that shared connection with them, that shared connection that happens through compassion. When we're compassionate to ourselves, to all the parts of ourselves, whether we like them or not, when we begin to love all of them, when we begin to love them unconditionally no matter what, when we begin to show them connection, I'm not going anywhere, I won't abandon you no matter what, when we show ourselves trust and bonding and friendship and love, when we show ourselves kindness, kind words, hugs, smiles, love, safety, a feeling of rest, a feeling of being heard, a feeling of being understood, a feeling of being needed and being important, a feeling of mattering. When we show this and give this compassion to ourselves, to all the parts of ourselves that are hurting and are suffering and desperately need compassion, desperately need you. When you're compassionate, you can build those parts back into yourself. Those parts can begin to feel safe. Those parts can begin to feel loved. Those parts of yourself can begin to relate to others again. Those parts can make you whole. They can come back into wholeness. And when you're whole, when you're complete, you can heal. Right? Because compassion is so important. When we have chronic illness, it's our natural tendency to be mean to ourselves, to say we're not doing a good enough job, we're not healing good enough, we're not doing the protocol good enough, we're lazy, or we're not smart enough, we can't figure it out, we're too dumb, we're too stupid, we're not trying hard enough, we don't have enough motivation. Really putting ourselves down. You would never talk to somebody else who's hurting or in pain like that. You would never speak to a child like that. You would relate to the part of them that is hurting. You would bond with the part of them that is in pain, with the part of them that is suffering, and you would offer them kindness. You would show them love. You would show them friendship. You would bond with them. You would give them compassion to tell them that they are good enough, they are worthy, they are loved, they can do it. They matter, they're important. You would show them understanding, you would listen, you would acknowledge, you would witness them. They would feel understood and heard and important. They would feel like they matter. They would feel loved in this world. You would do that for a child or a friend who is hurting. You would extend compassion. And we need to extend the same compassion to ourselves. It's so important for healing. Because when these parts of ourselves feel loved and safe and understood and heard, and when we can bring them back into ourselves with true self-compassion every time, every single time, the way we would a friend or a small child or an injured animal or a dying elder, when we extend compassion to ourselves, we heal ourselves. We heal the parts of us that feel unheard, that feel unloved, that feel unsafe, that feel disconnected, that feel dissociated, that feel broken. So we must be the one every single time to talk nice to ourselves, to talk kindly to ourselves, to be loving, to ask ourselves better questions. What would somebody who loves themselves unconditionally do right now? How would I treat someone who desperately needed my compassion right now? Right? These questions are so important to ask because it gives us the action that we need to do for ourselves. And it's not good enough to just know you need to give yourself compassion. The action is the most important thing. Are you going to do it? Are you going to extend compassion and love and bond with yourself and never abandon yourself and speak kind words to yourself? Encourage yourself. Say, you can do this. You can do this. You are doing a great job. I believe in you. Keep going. I'm here for you. I will never leave you. You would listen. You would listen when feelings arise and parts of yourself need to be heard and cry. You would listen. And compassionately, you would say, I'm so sorry that happened to you. That must be so hard. Life's not easy. I relate to you. I hear you. I understand you. And you're still important. That doesn't scare me off. I'm still here connecting with you. And I will never leave you. I will never abandon you. You would talk kindly and lovingly. Give yourself this gift of self-compassion. Cannot be understated on the road to healing. Because it is going to heal. It is the inner work. It's everything, right? Self-compassion is self-love. It's the action towards self-love. It's the showing. It's the doing. It's the encouraging. It's the listening. It's the kindness. It's the being there. And, all roads lead to self-love when we're talking about healing. Self-compassion is everything. Self-love is everything. There is a little child inside you, the inner child. And that's what it means to do inner child work. That's what it means to do the inner work. Are we extending compassion every day to the part inside of the child inside, the parts of us that are screaming out to be heard, that are screaming for attention, that are screaming for love? Are we extending our arms around this little person and giving true self-compassion, extending compassion, extending love, extending connection? That is the question you have to ask yourself all day through the day. Don't abandon the child within you. You must extend her self-compassion. I'm going to end the video here because it is getting rather windy. I hope you've enjoyed this one, and stay tuned for the next fifth C of healing.